I am the national spokesperson for the American Autoimmune Related Diseases Association, and they are launching a campaign called Know Your Family AQ, which means autoimmune quotient. And that basically is, how susceptible are you to getting an autoimmune disease, you or one of your family members. And basically, it means that you have to know your family's medical history because it could save your life. If your grandmother had rheumatoid arthritis, then your aunt could have lupus, or your sister might develop something like Graves' disease. So knowing your family's medical history is what is so vital. That information that you tell your doctor is what could help them diagnose something that could be an autoimmune disease. Autoimmune disease is basically when your immune system does not recognize healthy cells and proteins as just that and turns on itself and can cause all kinds of different reactions in the body. It can affect anything from your skin to your heart to your lungs, depending on the disease. So it also attacks women in their childbearing years. My sister, in fact, had lupus and she was 19 years old. And she should have been at the healthiest point in her life, and she was incredibly sick. It is a major health issue. It attacks more Americans than heart disease or cancer. Over 25 million Americans have an autoimmune disease. And a lot of people just don't know what autoimmune disease is. Less than 6% of Americans could identify what an autoimmune disease was. And that is very, very disturbing. That's why we need the education. Yes, autoimmune disease is definitely a major health issue. It costs $100 billion annually to the healthcare system in our country. And one of the most disturbing things is that it is a leading cause of death in children and in women under the age of 65. So it's something that we all need to be aware of and something we need to take a very, very good look at. I basically got a crash course in autoimmune disease when my sister Heather got lupus at 19, very suddenly. I mean, she probably had it for a very long time, but we never knew it. She, as we look back now, she had many of the symptoms, but we weren't able to recognize them because we were totally uninformed. She couldn't get out of bed one day. It was Mother's Day, 1998, and she had died 2 months later because she was misdiagnosed by 7 different doctors in Los Angeles. I mean, definitely people who should have known what to look for. They totally were uninformed. And finally, one doctor sat down and really listened to her, and she explained what she was going through. And he had enough of an imagination maybe to know, okay, it could be this, it could be lupus, it could be an autoimmune disease. And Heather's case was very, very serious, very quick, but not uncommon. And that's the thing that is so scary, is she was 19 years old, and she should have been at the healthiest point in her life, and she was very, very sick. And I became involved with AARDA specifically because I know that there are many autoimmune diseases. There are over 80 autoimmune diseases, and I have friends who are affected by rheumatoid arthritis, scleroderma, fibromyalgia, and I couldn't just say, I only want to, help people who have lupus. I want to help people who have autoimmune diseases, so if we find a cure for rheumatoid arthritis, that may bleed over into finding a cure for lupus. So basically, we need to address it all as one disease as opposed to 80 different diseases in order to find a cure and get some real, movement in this area of research. Autoimmune diseases are difficult to diagnose because the symptoms can be very fleeting. They can flare up. It can get bad at a certain point in the month, and then, the next week you're doing really, really well. And that was the case with my sister. She'd be fine, and then she'd not be feeling so well, and then she'd be fine again. What I actually encourage people to do if they think they may have an autoimmune disease is to go into your doctor armed with information, to basically keep a journal of what your symptoms are, so that if on Saturday you have the symptoms, you don't have your doctor's appointment until Wednesday, you're feeling okay on Wednesday. Write down exactly how you were feeling on Saturday. So you'll know exactly when you go into the doctor, this is how I was feeling, you need to pay attention, you need to listen to me. The symptoms, as I said, could be fleeting and hard to diagnose in that way, and no two autoimmune diseases seem to look the same. Rheumatoid arthritis looks very, very different than lupus, even though they're caused by the same thing, the immune system attacking itself. AARDA suggests that you do a few things to learn your family's AQ. Basically, you need to know your family's medical history. You need to know if your grandma, your aunts or uncles, if anybody had an autoimmune disease. So when you go into your doctor, you can say, my grandma had rheumatoid arthritis. So that helps you get a diagnosis. Also, you need to keep a list of symptoms. So if you're experiencing something one week, you need to write it down, talk to your doctor about that, talk to your family members so that you're armed with that information when you go in. 3, if you don't like what your doctor tells you, go and get a second opinion. If you don't agree with that, if they're saying you're fine, you're just tired, say, no, okay, I'm going to go get a third opinion. And sometimes it takes, in our case, it took 7 different doctors before we got a proper diagnosis. So take the time, listen to your body, and be strong and know that you know what's going on in your body, and tell them that you want a diagnosis. And finally, you need to educate yourself. Visit AARDA.org, AARDA.org, and go on the internet, ask questions. Don't think you're being an alarmist, because there's nothing wrong with getting information. It could save your life, and there are a lot of people out there who are going through the same thing you're going through. So you have to know that you're not alone, and educating yourself will definitely make you feel stronger and more confident when you do go in to your doctor or to seek that second or third opinion. Know that you've got that information, and that'll help you get further along and get your diagnosis.